we've got a full room now. Should we do this? So let's go. Understanding place sentiment. Thank you all very much for joining us. You have got me and you've got Sarah Bassett and Amy Roundtree all ready and waiting to answer your questions. Our agenda today is we're going to give you an introduction to social media and sentiment analysis. We look at how maybe data is used by the High Street Task Force in their dashboards, and then give you some background to maybe, and Amy's got a really great case study to talk you through that gives sort of social data context. And then if we've got some time, that'd be great to have a Q&A session as well. This is the first of a series of webinars that we're running this year. We're running first of the month all the way through the year. And in each session, we will do we'll look at some data from a different place. So fingers on the buzzers if you would like to be next up. We also do regular drop-in sessions. So if the more you throw your name in the hat, the more we can maybe run a session on you as well. But for those that don't know what this is about, let's dive in and you'll see what you'll get. So sentiment analysis is the measurement of context in aggregated social media posts. And what the team at IPM are very interested in is how it can provide insight into how people and organisations feel about a place, and what it might mean for their intentions and activity on the high street. Particularly when we're in a period of such change, the whole advent of social media has provided this opportunity to analyse what people are saying about places and measure the positive or negative tone. Amy's got a really interesting piece to show you about how the volume of activity can go up, but if the tone of the conversation isn't right, it's a little bit like being in a room, it can kind of kill the mood. So going forward, understanding place sentiment helps stakeholders evaluate high streets from a very different set of dynamics. And using sentiment analysis, you can start to understand how well you're serving the community and how well and what the impact of what businesses are saying is having on your place overall. You know, as the high street comes back to life and as life, you know, begins to work in a new normal way, we believe that blending this fire hose of data of what everybody's talking about alongside indicators as footfall and spend can be a real driver in the future of place. So just to give you some context, 66% of the UK's population now spend 3 hours a day on social media. That means they're pouring, they're talking about what they want to do, where they want to go. And there's a slight sort of disconnect sometimes, which is that often businesses and places can have their own agenda and be pushing a certain message, but doesn't necessarily connect with what people want and feel. So if you like, social sentiment is about being able to take all of those fire hoses of data and say, how does that all work together? How do we make the planets align? Because literally each of these social media platforms is a planet full of people talking about a thing. And our job is to provide data that makes it really easy to understand and start to interpret that data. Because actually, why do we need to do surveys now when actually what people are saying is happening in real time? So if you like, we're a set of tools that lets you put your head in through the curtain and say, what's the conversation that's going on about my place, in my place, and what does it mean for the choices that we need to make as local authorities? So the Maybe platform turns offline visitors into online audiences by linking existing data sets and providing an easy set of tools, both through our own interfaces and then through the data we provide to people like the High Street Task Force. We collect this data from 3.4 million businesses that we have identified through Google Maps. Google Maps provide us access with their to Google Maps. And then we go back every night and collect the data from Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And we do that daily. That means that we can see in real time what each place is saying. And we turn that data into guides and into a business dashboard that helps businesses understand how to make social media work. And we're just in the process of releasing live digital guides for every high street across the UK, which is in effect a digital twin of each town based upon the data that exists in that place. And also another project that we've been running through lockdown is we've now connected all of that data with Visa, Amex and MasterCard. So as the high street reopens, we'll be able to track spend across high streets across the UK and link that back to both social data and footfall data to give a much a bigger view of place. So how is the Maybe social media data being used by the High Street Task Force dashboard? I'm going to give you a little glimpse of the dashboard's that we're powering within the dashboards that you will be got dashboard itis, sorry. We're how our data is being used within the High Street Task Force platform. So this is a snapshot of the social media data that you'll be able to access in your dashboard. And what you've got is 5 key elements. You've got digital sentiment, digital participation, digital activity, digital engagement, and then the best post in place. I'm going to go through each of these in turn, and then we're going to look at Amy with a case study of actually the data within the Maybe platform itself. So digital sentiment is about being able to understand the conversation at scale in your place. Now, what each one of these word clouds represent is the conversation by both local brands and by national brands in a place. Now, what's really interesting here is you can see how in both cases, Stratford-upon-Avon is a key conversation. Now, many places where we work, sometimes you'll find that the place name is not a large part of the conversation. And when you stop and consider that people are spending so long on social media, one of the key things is to make sure is your place talking about your place, and then dive in and think, well, is what's being said relevant to my place, and is it painting the right picture? Amy's got a really great example of the impact that can have on social media engagement, and the importance of that is that, thank you, I've now been bought a beverage, look at that. The importance of the tone of the conversation can have a massive impact on sentiment, and we believe there's a very tight link between that sentiment and footfall, and we're looking forward to that all being visible to you in your dashboards, because you will for the first time be able to link social data and footfall data together. Going on to digital participation, this looks at the number of national organisations that are active on social media on a given day against the total potential participation, and looks at the potential and looks at the percentage of local organisations that are active on a given day. Spoiler alert is that one of the things that really concerns us is that we can see that only 28% of independent businesses are active on social media on any given day, on average in most places. And if you consider, again, just think of the time that consumers are spending on social media. If you're not in their feed and if you're not part of their conversation, people are much less likely to do business with you. So think of this as an indicator of the digital health of your place. You know, how many of my local businesses are active on social media. We've seen businesses that literally through lockdown have worked out how to use social media to turn on an entire new revenue stream. And the real worry is that if businesses are shut right now and they're not active on social, their customers really are learning another way to buy. This slide excites us for when the high street reopens. This looks at digital activity. So this looks at the number of businesses that are active and looks at the footfall that goes over the top of them. And I think this is a really exciting view of place that's not been done before. And hats off to the team at IPM for making this possible. That as your footfall data gets put into your High Street Task Force dashboard, you'll also be able to track the digital activity of your place. Remember, this is the data from all of the businesses within your town. You haven't got to get them to sign up. The data is already there, ready and available for you from Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. The only caveat is they've got to have had a Google My Business listing for us to found them. So this data will just appear. And if you can then track your footfall data against it, you can then begin to see the correlation between what's the volume of data and the footfall. But when Amy talks you through the Harrogate data, you'll see how the impact that the conversation can actually have on the sentiment, which will also have an impact on footfall too. So this looks at the data, digital engagement across channels. So this is breaking the data from Facebook, Twitter and Instagram on this bar chart down. The reason we think this is, we believe this is valuable is it helps you understand where the bulk of conversation is happening. It also gives you an indication of the sentiment of that conversation. So from a local authority perspective, you can think about where your resources are, because from a reopening high street safely positioning, it's really important that your message reaches the audience. But if you can see here that, for example, in this, and this is just example data, there's a much bigger conversation on Twitter than there is, oh, beg your pardon, I'm in a tech fail today, a big proportion, sorry. You can see here that the data on Twitter there are more organisations active on Twitter. So from a reopening high street safely message, potentially if you need to reach the organisations, Twitter would be a good channel in this example. Remember, this example data, I'm not saying that's right, but yet Instagram is potentially the better channel for consumers. So it helps you think about how you're allocating resources to local authority. And then best posts in place. This again is something that we use a lot in the Maybe platform, because if you can see what channels and what the content is working in each post, and best post is defined by the level of engagement that post gets. We have an algorithm that sits behind it that says a share is the most valuable, a comment is the second valuable, and like is easy to give, and that helps us rank how engaging a post is. And if you can see which posts are getting the most engagement in your town, you begin to get a real feel for the type of content that the local authority needs to create, but also the content that's winning for businesses. And we very much teach businesses how to then engage with the best posts in place, because that's the post that's getting the most reach, and that's how businesses can get more benefit from social media. That's a whole topic in its own right, but if you join us in another webinar, we'll talk to you more about that.
I've got a question.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good question too. Where can we access this data? Can we have a link, please?
Good question. So as a High Street Task Force person, you all have an open invitation to the Maybe platform, and we'll send you details of that after this webinar. But if you go to maybetech.com and log on, you will be able to get into a Maybe account. The data I've just shown you here is the data that you'll have access to. So these graphs are the data that you'll have access to via the High Street Task Force dashboard once the High Street Task Force release that. But in the meantime, if you like, this is summary data in the High Street Task Force dashboard. In the Maybe platform, it's even more granular. It's this data plus much more, and you've all been granted access to the Maybe platform too. So Sarah will follow up with you after this call and give you a link to that. And we'll the next session of this webinar really shows you what you get inside the Maybe platform as well, which, if you like, takes the data from summary down to the actual post level. And what we're doing with a number of local authorities right now is working with them to provide their businesses with access to the Maybe dashboard as well, so that they can reach more customers and have a much better chance of reopening safely. So the Maybe dashboard has the same data source that the High Street Task Force dashboard does, but it lets you go to another level of granularity, and we're going to show you a lot more about that right now. As I said, you'll all have an invite to this platform after this call. What you can see here is this is the dashboard. It's very much designed for everybody in an organisation to be able to understand what social media is about. You don't have to be the person that's creating the tweets or building the posts for social media to be relevant to you. The dashboard is broken down into sections, and it lets you see who you've been engaging with. The engage part of the platform is having a massive overhaul, preparation for the high streets reopening, and what every local authority has access to is all of the conversation from all of their businesses in their town for them to literally be able to go and engage with. For your social teams, that is an enormous step forward. If you're running any paid advertising, you see how they're performing. And for your social teams, again, you'll be able to jump in and respond to comments and mentions across all of Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And then where it gets really interesting is you have a report down the left-hand rail, which I'll dive in at the end of the webinar if we haven't run out of time, or I can show you in real time. It lets you see your best post, how people feel about you, what content's working, and a raft of other really great reports. And you can compare them to somewhere else. And this comparison is really important, because if you consider your place as somewhere that people have got to choose where they're going to, you need to understand, how does our conversation measure up to other places? And the Maybe dashboard is a really easy place to do that. Now, Amy is going to really talk you through how the place and insights element of the Maybe platform helps a local authority understand at scale what all of their businesses are saying. And I think there's a real gem in here. I'd just like to sort of caveat, we're working with Harrogate. They're brilliant to work with, and we're helping all of their businesses increase their use of social media. We see this lovely jump in this graph. They've gone up from 28% of businesses being active on social media, which is actually bang on the average, leaping to sort of just under about 35% of businesses being active on social media. So hats off to Harrogate. Really great to see that uplift. And that's our day job, and that's what Sarah, that's the part of the business that Sarah runs. So Amy, tell us what this data is showing, and we are going to give you an opportunity to see this live at the end of this demo as well. So Amy, take it away, please.
Hello. So as Polly was saying, I am going to walk you through 6 different sets of data that has been collected through December and January from all the businesses that are in the Harrogate local authority. So Polly's already slightly given you a hint to what the first graph is showing. So through December, as Polly said, 28% of businesses had registered social media accounts. By January, with a bit of support from the placemakers in Harrogate, that had increased to 34%. So that's the graph that you're seeing on the left. The graph that you can see on the right is of those now what is 34% of businesses with social media accounts, how many of them are actually creating social media content every single day? And that's stayed pretty consistent through December and January at 25%. You'll notice the spikes. Those spikes, this is a pattern that we see across the board whenever we go into this level of place insight data. It's at the weekends, businesses' activity drops, and there isn't that consistency through the week in creating content. So if we move on to the next slide, Polly, we'll now take a look at the juicy stuff, which is the post volumes and the engagement. So on the left, you have all those businesses, and this is a really high amount of content. So all the businesses within the Harrogate local authority, on average per day, and again, you can see those drops at the weekend, they create 1,700 pieces of social media content. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see the impact and the tail off through January in that engagement that's being created. So that is customers, residents, citizens engaging with the content created by those businesses in Harrogate. So through December, it was at times well over 100,000 engagements per day. And then that has steadily dropped off. So the average is around 80, but it does get higher. And then through January, we've seen that half. So the content that is being created through January, for whatever reason, and I'll give you a hint as to why in a second, is not engaging Harrogate's residents as much as it was in December. So this is where place sentiment comes in. So Polly, if you can skip for me. So graph on the left is our wonderful sentiment barometer, and this is the tone of the conversation that those businesses in Harrogate are creating. So through December, and if you remember, the UK came out of lockdown around about December the 2nd. Everybody's feeling perky up north, everybody's staying nice and positive. That is the language in the posts that Harrogate's businesses are creating. It's on the nose, it's positive because we see lots of happy Christmas in that content, and we see lots of Merry Christmas. And then it stays that way until round about January the 3rd. And then the sentiment of those posts that Harrogate's businesses are creating plummets. Now, this is really important because in the same time frame, whatever has happened to that content has had not only a knock-on in, we've seen the sentiment drop down, so it's not as perky as it was before, but the knock-on effect, as we saw on the previous slide, is that Harrogate's residents and the followers of those businesses just aren't as engaged by it. So when we look at the word cloud on the right, so this is again data from December and January, you've got Christmas slap bang in the middle, and you've got some conversations around place. So you can see on the right-hand side that the businesses kind of, and they have been prompted to do this by organisations like Visit Harrogate, have been adding the place hashtag. So Harrogate's in there. You can just about see Yorkshire as a whole above the Christmas tag. And then to the left of that word cloud, North Yorkshire is in there as well. But you can also see coronavirus is in there, and it's quite, it's in line with the amount of conversation that's been created using North Yorkshire, slightly less than Harrogate, and bigger than Yorkshire as a whole. But what's really important when we come to thinking about the conversations that get created is right now, the audience for those businesses, the audience for your residents and the people in your places, they are at home, just like the rest of us. They're stressed, they're anxious, they're bored. And social media is a source quite often of entertainment and inspiration for these people. That is what people are looking for from social content right now. When at the end of 2020, we did a piece of research and we profiled 180 retailers across the UK, big national retailers, including the likes of Nike, Zara, Mango, H&M, Primark were in there. And we looked at their best posts using that best post tool, and these posts were getting millions of engagements, and you could argue, yes, they're coming from big brands like Nike, but what was staggering across all of them is not a single one of them mentioned the words lockdown, not a single one of them mentioned the word coronavirus. And what this tells us is, although this situation is happening and it's impacting residents and it's impacting businesses, the content that is engaging is the content that is choosing to inspire and entertain customers more. And I don't think you can see that any more clearly at the moment. As lockdown has come back in, more people are talking about safety precautions and giving very practical information, and that's great, it is needed. But we can see that as that language creeps through January in that sentiment graph and the sentiment drops, the engagement within Harrogate is also dropping.
Kim's asked a really fair question, Amy, which is, it'd be interesting to know how much lockdown is affecting engagement sentiment and what level is normal seasonality. So her point is looking at the engagement and sentiment versus November would be interesting.
Yeah.
Kim, that's a really, really great question, and hold that, and we'll show you, we'll do that live at the end. But we wanted to demonstrate how sentiment does impact engagement. But really, really good point, Kim, and we'll show you that live at the end.
So now I just want to flip to the next one and show you a post from a business in Harrogate. This was the most engaging social media post there was in the whole of Harrogate by a local business on Friday, December the 4th, so just 2 days after those lockdown restrictions ended. And again, this is a post with beautiful imagery, it inspires, it delights. And if we look at the hashtags that are being used, they're not just around the wellness industry. This is a spa, a UK break, but we can see that they are really engaging at a place level. So they're really demonstrating pride in their place. Yorkshire's in there, Harrogate's in there. You can also see the hashtag for Visit Yorkshire is in there. And this content is very much providing inspirational content again, but from the point of view of placemaking, is it is content that you can engage and reshare, because it really does kind of paint your place in a glorious light. And at the moment, people really do want to be supporting local businesses.
I think, Amy, what's really from a place perspective, and has exacerbated this. You know, every placemaking is about often creating events and experiences in the place. But as we've all sort of in a socially distanced world where we're all spending far more time looking at our phone screens, it's kind of understanding that actually the digital aura of your town will have an impact on how people want to spend time there. And I think this is this is what I find fascinating about sentiment data, is if the collective voice of your place is strong and positive and putting out that aura of desire that I want to be there, your place genuinely is the sum of your digital parts. And I think we're moving to a world where that's going to become incredibly important. I'd love to hear your views on that.
I agree. I also think that place is very much about community connection and belonging. And at the moment, we're all severely lacking that. and those digital conversations about place provide something that people can still unite around online.
It's a really good question here from Tony, saying post-Christmas, I feel businesses, particularly small independents, are more concerned about whether they will survive the lockdown and therefore not engaging with customers that they could not guarantee it's worth it. Tony, I don't dispute that piece, but what I can say is that we have got case studies of businesses who have literally reinvented themselves through social. And I think one of the challenges is that, you know, the world has changed and, you know, it's ridiculously tough out there. But this is a channel where the customer still is, it's a channel where the customer is still spending money. And so where businesses can learn how to use it, there's a lifeline. So it's not a question of it's not worth it. It's a question of, is it worth not talking to your customer? Because how can you've got to find a way to connect. As human beings, we connect, and social is a channel through which to connect. But also as a local authority tool, it's a way to understand what the people in your place, what are their wants, needs, and fears. So Amy, I think your key learnings, do you want to actually talk these through? But I think this whole piece of places about community and connection and belonging is something that we're all, you know, that we are as human beings, that's what we want. And the idea of these tools is that it helps you really understand how the people in your place feel. Businesses and places need to lift up their audience, also inspire, entertain, and create variety. You know, I think you know, I can, you know, before long, I think the idea of being able to understand the health of your place based upon the conversation will become a thing, because the power of, you know, there are brands that have lost billions off their stock market valuation because they missed a bad tweet, and, you know, they didn't respond. And I think placemakers have got to think about social in the same kind of way. It's incredibly powerful. So, and content is about the needs of an audience. It's about making sure that you're communicating the message of your place. Do you want to explain that a bit more, Amy?
Yeah, so I think as we're seeing with content at the moment, there is a message around shopping safely. We see a lot of businesses communicating how they're serving customers safely, what restrictions are in place, what businesses are open as essential retailers. And this is very practical information. So that kind of sits back to the original question around how can we inform, engage and empower. That very much checks that box, and it's reassuring the customers of those businesses and the people in your place that we're doing everything we can to keep them safe, which is a basic human need. But then the next layer of that is there's an emotional need at the moment to be entertained, to have some boredom, some light relief. And if anybody wants a good example of a public sector service that do that especially well on Twitter, I would recommend you check out Doncaster Council, who just deliver wonderful practical advice, but then they add a layer of humanity and humour to that. So that's what I mean around that, is audiences are looking to be served information, but they are also looking at the moment for that entertainment. And whilst as placemakers or as marketeers, we might have our own messages that we need to get across at the moment that check our boxes, actually starting with the customer or the or your levy payers and your tenants first, and meeting their needs first, will put you in a much better position to get a handle on what kind of messages you need to be getting out as a priority.
It's a nice message here from Putney around having experienced how businesses feel once they use social media. As much as anything, it gives more control in an uncontrollable situation. So if you like, think of tools like this as a way to read the room. You kind of get a feeling. This is lovely feedback from Bid actually. It equally gives the business owners mental well-being by using the connected. Yeah, so it's the idea that for managers of place that can't physically be in the place right now, this actually gives you a way to be in the place in inverted commas without physically being on the street. So I think the Bid actually that this Anna from Putney, Positively Putney, they do a great job of engaging with their businesses through social media. They do use the Maybe platform to do that, and we'll show you how that works. But what they're saying is by being part of that conversation, this kind of goes back to Tony's point earlier on, that whilst life is unbearably tough at the moment, actually as a councillor, as a bid, being joining the conversation that businesses are putting out there right now is incredibly important, because it means you've got to remember that every time you engage with somebody else's post on social, you're making their phone go ping, you're creating that bit of human engagement, which is what we all seek right now. So think of this as both an enormous big sift that lets you sift the lumps out and understand what matters, but also a way to connect that one-on-one. And then finally, my biggest tip for local authorities is to think about the skills gap. And your businesses need to be able to communicate with the customers, but also they need to be able to see the content that you publish. That's that's the really heart of what we do. Another question here. Hello, let's be able to view footfall data in comparison to social media data. Please could you advise how the footfall data collected? Daniel, great question. Daniel's asking, how does the footfall data get overlaid against the social data? So I'm afraid our job stops at social data. The High Street Task Force dashboard, both it brings in Springboard data if you have it, and if you don't have it, they have a really great method for counting footfall data. So that's something to pick up with the team at the High Street Task Force and IPM, and they'll tell you exactly how that gets overlaid. But I'm really excited to see those two data sets come together. Obviously, it's been slightly delayed because of the pandemic, but it's very much on the route map of, I think everything's ready, and if we'll get them to confirm the dates that's going live. But really excited to see that. So just to round up, I want to sort of explain that you'll all be given an invitation to join and sign up to your Maybe account. That helps organisations improve their use of social media, whether it's the local authority or it can work for the smallest or the largest business in the land. It very much helps improve the collective communication of places, and that's sort of the piece that we work on a commercial level with places with. And during lockdown, the Maybe team worked really hard to build a platform that can also reward shoppers for their local high street spend. So we've used all the data that we've talked you through today to create basically a digital twin of your town. And we work with, and that's really the sort of entry point for us to work with local authorities to help businesses improve their use of social media. And we'll send you all these details after this webinar. We believe that today 28% of businesses that already are active on social media need tools and training to help them get even better, because we can see that when they get really good at social, they sell well, and that brings more people to place. But most importantly, we share those stories with others to inspire the 72% of businesses that are not yet active to become active, because this is the new, this is part of the high street. It's not digital. It's not just an e-commerce channel. It's a place that people communicate and make decisions. And if your place and your businesses are not part of that channel, it will have an impact on your place in the long run. So I always like diving off and doing something naughty, and I've been pretty well behaved today. So I'm actually going to go back up to 2 steps. First one, how are we doing on time? All good. So who would like to go and look at their place insights and go and look at how they're doing? So look at the data we showed for Harrogate. So come on, fingers on the buzzers. Who wants to come and play? So we jumped into the Maybe dashboard, and we go to place insights. And who would like to see their data come up on screen? Solihull. There we go. Let's do that. Sarah, I'd have to shout out who else we've got coming up.
Yeah, well, Ealing as well. I'm quite interested in Wokingham.
Okay. Do you get to be? Has anybody asked for Wokingham, or are you just being? Are you being? Oh, look at this! Look at this! Ah, look at the flowing in. Here we go. So, who was first? Who do we say first?
Solihull first.
Solihull. So this data is taken from the CRDC boundaries. So let's do Solihull Retail Park, Solihull Local Authority, Solihull County, Solihull. And what date range would you like? It was Kim that asked for Solihull. What date range would you like? Should we go back? Oh gosh, Kim asked a difficult question. Let's go back. Let's get back to November. There we go. So here you can see the percentage of organisations with a social media account. So the blue line will be the retail park, absolutely. So retail park, 90% of businesses have a social media account. Then you've got, I'm just going to take extra out of here because it's confusing. Take Bath or something. There we go. So you see how what you can do is pull the data from any boundary across in the UK, and you're seeing the percentage of organisations with social media. So you can see 90% of the retail park. Across Solihull, 74%. That is absolutely brilliant. Well done, Solihull. Solihull as a county, 24% of. That's much more in line with what we normally see. 24%, and then a little bump here, up to 27% of businesses active on social media. beg your pardon, that's people with accounts. I don't even know my data now, sorry, long day. Active on social media. So this is 28% of businesses in Solihull have a social media account. And then this is saying of those, 33% are active. That's the gap that needs filling. Then you can look at post volumes, engagement volumes, and you can look at, so this is interesting, Kim, to your question. Here you can see engagement volumes. This was, Amy, I think this stands out to your point really well. The engagement volumes in November, much higher than even in December and then in January. And if you look how this maps against sentiment, this is fascinating. It's something we're doing a lot of work on in how, you know, the tone of the conversation impacts engagement. And you see here the same drop off in sentiment around engagement. Hobbycraft's very interesting one. Hobbycraft is one of the very few national brands that talks that has local social media, and they talk about their place. Amy, anything else you'd like to shout out from here?
Yeah, so actually back to Kim's question earlier, I've actually got the Harrogate data going back to November, and it's a similar story to what we're looking at here, is that sentiment stays on the positive line through November, which is remarkable actually, because the UK was in lockdown through most of November. So if we look at Harrogate,
Harrogate is in orange. Smaller data set, so it doesn't quite leap out as much.
Yeah, but if you look on that sentiment graph, it's the same pattern.
Exactly.
That we see.
Fascinating. So you are the sum of what you say, I'm afraid, people. Where should we go next? Gloucester. Should we go to Gloucester? I tell you what, I'm going to clear all these filters, and Sarah, do you want to shout out a whole list of people, and we'll put them all in together? Let's have some competition.
Absolutely. So we'll have Gloucester, we'll have Broxbourne. Oh, Rill, that would be good.
Rill, how do I spell that? I'm going to get that wrong.
R-H-Y-L.
R-H-Y-L. Rill. There we go. Next one.
Weston-super-Mare.
So this, you'll all have this tonight. So you can play with this with your gin and tonic, or whatever is your favourite tipple. Weston-super-Mare. Where else are we going to go?
Leek.
Oh, Leek. That's just up the road from me. Leek. Where else would you like to go?
Salisbury.
Salisbury. That might be our lot. The great thing about this is that I can't spell clearly.
Salisbury.
And the great thing about this is that you can sort of compare performance. Now we're not being mean and putting anybody against each other on purpose here, but and if you want to see what's the area covered by somewhere, you can, if you click on the pin, you can see what's the area covered by that data. So and there's some features coming out on the platform soon that means you can move that boundary. So if you want to look at a particular area for your bid, for example, you'll be able to move that boundary and say only show me businesses in that area, which is really exciting. So here you can see how there's a very similar pattern around this dropping at the weekend. Post volumes, engagement volumes. This is a national issue, Amy. Maybe you want to do a nice piece on this, you know, around the sentiment, and the same here. Amy, anything you'd like to call from this data?
I think there's an interesting point that's just been raised on the chat from Lisa around the 5th of November, where we might see in some places a spike in activity or engagement, or as businesses are informing people that they're closed. And then there's probably another spike around about the December the 2nd, December the 3rd, as businesses reopen. So you tend to see activity follow around those peak times as well.
Yeah. Can we go down to the word clouds, Polly? That was quite interesting, because, you know, we were talking about some places are really good at using this sort of place level hashtag, and perhaps place doesn't shine through so much in others.
Oh, who's that in Real? Their graph looks really interesting.
Doesn't it?
Gloucester's fascinating. Gloucester really good. Good job, Gloucester. Real. Lots of positive, but not much real. Nobody talking about place in real. Lots of lovely content, but not a lot of real, is there?
Not a lot of place, but they've got that live, love, local message in there.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful word cloud though, Real. That's really, really lovely. Really lovely. Should we go and look at the best post in Real? Let's just if we can go to Real. Let's just we'll dive off one more thing, and then I'm going to go and show you. I've got one more thing to show you.
You really are going off piece now, Polly, but yeah, go for it.
Please keep asking questions, people. Lots of you on the call. Make use of us. So let's go and look at the best post in Real, because I thought that content looked amazing, Amy. That word cloud suggests they're doing something lovely. How do I spell that? R-H. How do I spell Real again? R-H.
Y-L.
Y-L.
Y-L, yeah.
Completely dyslexic and stupid, as everybody's now discovering, sorry. Look at this. So today, this is really lovely engagement. So this is the best post in place tool within the Maybe platform, which again, you'll all have access to. You put in the place name, choose a date, and it shows you the best post in place. Lovely Emily, that's on this call, does a lovely job of going and then shouting out the businesses in a place that are doing a great job on social media, which I think is a really smashing thing to do. But you can see here the tone of the conversation was some lovely independents doing really great content. So I'm run out of time, but yeah, you get the feeling. You can't break it. Dive in. It's full of data. Go learn about what your place is saying, because it really matters. And then finally, we've taken all of that data and turned it inside out. And we're just in the process of the final throes of launching a tool that we're going to provide to every place. That says, you know, the hardest thing to do is actually bring your place together, and also we know the hardest thing to do is to get businesses to start to Tony's point, think about this social media. We probably don't want to think about lots of other things right now, but we do really believe that every place is the sum of their parts. Let's go to Gloucester. And so we have, using the data we've already got, created consumer-facing guides of every high street in the country that are also connected to transactions. So you've got one thing to promote, and from a reopening high street safety perspective, businesses can log in here, say what their safety, we're just finalising this piece at the moment, it links to their website, but it also allows them to put what safety measures they've got in place, allows them to link to any other websites they're doing transactions through. So for example, if they're working with Shop Happy or Click It Local, you've got one place to promote all of the businesses in your town, and all of this data is already here. So if anybody wants to shout out, make me go somewhere else, you'll show this and fix. So should we go to Real? I didn't know, I can't even spell it, so I don't know that exists. Help me again.
H-Y-L, yeah, that's it.
So let's go to Real. So here's a guide for Real. So consumer facing guide encourages businesses to sign up and start to manage their listing. That means they learn about social. And as a shopper, I can see and I can support, and I can say, right, I want to go, and I want to go to Level OK, for example. Well, that's not always going to happen when you do a live demo. You can guarantee that when you do a live demo. But we're asking businesses to log in and put their web addresses in, so we can take them to them. But you can go and see exactly where that business is in that town, link the map. So that's all about digital infrastructure for place, and we're really excited about the project. If you'd like to know more about it, we'll send you an email about it. Any more questions, people?
Yes. How does this, well, is this similar to Shop Happy? How does it compare to Shop Happy?
Oh, that's a good question. It's totally different. So Shop Happy is a transactional service. It lets people sell product. What Maybe does is it provides you with all of the tools to understand the conversations that are going on in your platform, and the local rewards element is taking that data and making it into a guide for your place that you can promote to consumers to get them to come to your place. If you're working with Shop Happy, brilliant, and they're also a client of ours. We can enable the businesses to put their Shop Happy link on their card, so that all you're doing is creating a representation of your place. Wherever you want to go in the UK, one exists. So if we go to Putney, for example, wherever the shopper's going, they can find what's in that place, which is actually remarkably hard. And maintaining a guide for every place is really hard too. So it just makes it really simple to promote your place, and encourage businesses to be active on social media in your place, because unless they're live on Google My Business, unless they're live on Instagram, they won't appear here, which is kind of the sort of the little nudge that sometimes businesses need to start to pick up the social media bandwagon, because it really matters. We've got businesses that have literally traded to an entirely new level because they've embraced social media during lockdown, and we want to help them do it through this period and beyond, because we believe that's a key part to places remaining successful. Did that answer the Shop Happy question? So we're very much a tool that will, if you're using Shop Happy, it will help Shop Happy work better. If you're not using Shop Happy, then it's a tool that helps you reach more people. So we're a collaborator with everybody. Any more questions, Sarah? Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Well, that's no good, is it?
Really?
Is it just Instagram on local rewards?
So good question. So what we've done with Instagram is we have made it the default setting. So when you open the guide, we know that I guarantee you, whichever guide you try and find, and Sarah's going to drop the localrewards.chat URL into your chat session right now, so you know we'll play. What we realize is one of the blocks for promoting places, you have to get the content first. We're using Instagram content because it's a uniform size, but on each business's card, they will be able to add their website, any other websites they're selling through, if they're selling through Amazon or Truva, for example, and also their other social media channels, and create their own reward card. So if they're not on Instagram at all, once they sign into Maybe, they can create a different. They can create their own content. We're using Instagram content to ensure that every place in the UK has a guide that works today. It just gets better as businesses start using it and adding more content to it. Because we realise that if every bid and every local authority in the country has to create a guide, the overhead is enormous. And because of the technology we've already built, and because of the data we've already got, we can give a guide that's not all of your town, but it's a fairly good shot at most of your town. And it also provides the incentive for businesses to sign up and manage their listing. And the minute they sign up, they then hit our training program and get the tools and encouragement to become more digital, because wherever we come out of the pandemic, being more digital is absolutely key to places and businesses' survival, in my humble opinion. Thank you all so much for your time. Have you got any other questions to ask?
Yes, lovely, Kim. Any tips or tricks to start pushing the sentiment score back up? I know how much sentiment is influenced by the national mood examples of good. Positive place campaigns would be interesting to see.
Yeah, Kim, what a great question. So I think to Amy's point, what was fascinating when we did a big piece of research for Retail Week, and it really demonstrated that the brands that have traded best, and apologies for talking about brands, but at the end of the day, places and retailers, we're all selling something, right? Places that talked positively about people's needs and looking after them and care, talking about what people needed, but not about the thing, coronavirus and COVID, have seen much better sentiment. So, and I think one of the pieces of work that we're going to undertake right now is thinking about how, from a reopening high street safely perspective, how you can convey all the messages you need to convey without exuding all of those words that actually create a negative sentiment. And I think from a place perspective, I think there was a question earlier on about hashtags. Putney, a great example of a bid that have embraced a hashtag around Shower Putney, for example, and it's created a nice vibe of everybody just collaborating and being more positive about their place. So I think, Kim, to your point, it's all about thinking, well, how can you've got to talk about the elephant in the room, but you kind of don't want to mention the elephant in the room, because, and you've got to convey, how you're reopening safely, but you don't want to drown out the message of all the lovely things you're coming to the high street for. And I think we're doing a big project at the moment around interviewing high street businesses and really singing their stories, because there are some amazing stories to tell, and each of you have got beautiful stories in your place to tell. So find a way to hang your reopening high street safety message around the stories of your place, the stories of your people in your place, because as consumers, everybody needs their spirits lifting right now, and you need to find a way of going beyond just we're doing it safely and these are the measures.
a few minutes ago, didn't we, on one of the word clouds, hashtag love live local. And we had a message from Nicholas, that's Denbighshire, I think, do you pronounce it Denbighshire? Yes, Denbighshire Council's shop local scheme. I love that. Love live local.
Yeah, it makes you smile straight away, and your content has got. Think of that influence, the sentiment graph that we've been talking about, as a way. Would that piece of content make me smile? And if you're managing teams, if you just scroll down your feed and think, would that content make me smile? If the answer is no, then the message needs to go back to the team, which is just, think about the content's got to warm people's hearts right now. Yes, you've got an important message to get across, but it's got to warm people's hearts. I'm sorry, Uttlesford. Sorry, yeah, that's funny. Thank you all so much for your time. Message from Isle of Wight, they'd like some Instagram training. Funny you should mention that. We're just working on some lovely videos around Insta training right now. So stay tuned, Julie. Great to see so many of you on your call. Sarah, is there anything else we've missed? We covered off lots of this.
I don't think so.
The people that we didn't, Amy, when are we doing a session on Place Insights next week on our 10 o'clock call? Thursday. So on Thursday, so if everybody dives in and gets themselves a Maybe account, we'll go and give you the cheeky High Street Task Force upgrade behind the scenes. But come and join us at 10 o'clock on Thursday, and we'll go through some Place Insights with you and explain what they mean. And I think the question that Kim's asked around sentiment, we'll have some examples of how, tips and tricks of how you can use a different language to increase sentiment, and what that could mean when we get a beautiful position of reopening High Street. Does that sound like a good deal to everybody? Let's have some feedback. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, John. Thank you, Julie. Can we share the slides? 100, yes, brilliant. Okay, and just finally, can I just let you into a horrible secret, which is there is no magic answer with social media. It's really key to be able to understand what it's telling you about your place, and it's also really key to, as a team, get better at it. You never get good at it, you get better at it, because it's a sort of amorphous thing. It's like nailing jelly to the wall, but you do begin to think, I understand it. Is that a fair comment, Amy? It's, nobody ever cracks it, you just get better at it, and it's all about getting better. And it can be sometimes the thing which is not important to do, but remember, it's the thing that people that live in your place spend 3 hours a day doing. And if you're not present, they'll be present in somebody else's place. And as placemakers, you need to make sure you understand them and you understand the way to bring them back to your place. Thank you so much for all your time. Sarah, send you an email. We'd love to help you all some more. And look forward to hearing your feedback from the dashboards, both maybe and the data that as it gets pushed through to the High Street Task Force. Thank you very much. Be kind, stay safe. And at the same time, same place next month, we'll be looking at somebody else. If anybody wants to do some more, you can dive in on Thursday to look at Place Insights. Thank you all very much indeed. Over and out.